It's the same with me. I've never had a complaint made against me in 20 years, 30 years of my practice. And all of a sudden, I had 2 complaints on the same day, just hours apart. Why? If the Healthcare Complaints Commission is so smart with their investigation, that in itself speaks volume. They should look into the validity of both of those complaints. And that's all I'm asking. I'm asking, hey, if someone complained about me, fine. I'm ready to face questioning and all that, but not with a falsified complaint. I can't deal with that. That's just so wrong to go after me based on a falsified complaint. Yeah, I think so. I think that they can target any specific doctor they want. They just make up the complaint, and the health regulators, even though the complaint's dodgy, they still investigate because they are complicit in the act. They're all complicit.
It's all lawfare. Judiciary and legal process and due process and regulations have now been weaponized to punish dissenting doctors.
Correct. We believe that they specifically target. So if they want to get rid of you, they can get rid of you.
We were talking about Wendy Sellen, Roro, and Mylie. Wendy Sellen is a lady who spoke today about the estrogen, too much estrogen in everything, in scented oils, essential oils, in food, in water. And it's causing breast cancer, it's causing menopausal issues, it's causing the feminization of boys, it's causing infertility. It's a freaking nightmare. Anyway, Roro, I agree. She's quite intense. And I think one of the reasons why she's intense is she learned under her mentor, this doctor who's passed away. And now she's the only person who is banging on about this topic. And she's been cancelled and censored. She's given podcast interviews and they've not published it. So she was almost thought I wasn't going to publish it. And because she says, like, there's no one talking about this issue. And she's been going on about it for 18 years. And after 18 years, you kind of go crazy. Like, you're like, just everybody.
Well, the most shocking fact was that in America, the 8-year-olds are becoming pubescent. That is really frightening.
It's happening. It's happening. And it's terrifying. Anyway, let's talk about Mylie. Mylie, both of you, it's amazing that you're both friends. Roro, fantastic for supporting Mylie in her recent court case.
She's amazing. She is.
Mylie is
I don't know what I'd do without her.
Well, we're good friends, aren't we, Mylie?
Yes.
Well, I've come to the realization that actually there are a few good lawyers. I just came back from the funeral of Anna de Busserac. Anna de Busserac died of cancer on the 30th of November. She was one of those rare lawyers who's speaking up for the truth, speaking against the COVID mandates, the problems with informed consent. It was actually a very moving ceremony. Her 3 children were up on this, and they were all individually, they all gave a tribute, and I had tears in my eyes. People were sobbing and crying. She was an incredible woman, mother. Anyway, it was fantastic. But listen, let's talk about Mylie. Let's jump in your side first. So Billy Bates just won his court case. It's been amazing. It's fantastic. Around about the same time, you were in court. Now tell us all about what it was like, and then Roro can fill in the gaps and tell her from the gallery what it felt like as well. Tell me, Mylie.
So Billy Bates' news came out on the Friday, the 13th. I went to court from the Monday to the Thursday. So this is my what I call a prosecution proceeding. So the Healthcare Complaints Commission took me to court to prosecute me. And the basis of that was really about a patient that I've treated whose life I saved, and also about a bunch of ivermectin patients that I've treated that they seek the medical files for, and the treatment of and prescribing of ivermectin of a few of my family members. So that was what I went to the proceeding for. So they wanted to make a finding that I'm practicing significantly below standard for treating this lady under an exceptional circumstance. So this is a lady who was diagnosed with COVID-19 while she was in hospital. They didn't treat her. They isolated her, made her wear a mask, and prevented her family members to visit her. And after about a couple of days, she knew that they weren't doing anything for her, so she decided to discharge herself against medical advice and went home and continued to deteriorate over a number of days. And when when they contacted me, that she was very unwell with saturations in the mid to low 7. Well, initially in the high 80s, and then her saturation dropped significantly to the low 70s on the same day. And I told her that she's too unwell for me to treat, but she wouldn't go to the hospital. She said that she'd rather die at home, so that she could be with her children rather than dying in hospital. And so that's the circumstances that I treated this lady. And
Malik, we've already covered this in the last podcast. I hate to interrupt you.
Sure.
We've had lots of conversations since then about the court case. I want you to talk about what the lawyers and the shenanigans and what the reality of it is like being prosecuted. I'm sorry, I just want you to go back into the zone that you are when you're on the phone with me. You know, when you're ranting free flow and you're just letting it rip. Just drop the facade of the interview. Forget that. We've done that podcast. We've gone through the case. I know all about it. People have heard it. But you know, when you're on the phone with me one-to-one and you are just letting it rip and Miley's coming, I want to see that. I want to see that, Miley. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we've seen this. We've done that. I don't want to spend another hour going through all of that. I want the real Miley to come out now and tell me what these fucking assholes are doing to you in court. Just get on with it and just be brutal and raw. That's what I want everyone to hear. So what are they up to in court?
They put up an expert witness against me, and that expert witness was against ivermectin, and he's saying that ivermectin was not an effective drug for treatment of COVID-19. But on the first day, the judge seemed to be fairly impartial, and he asked the expert witness whether I've saved the patient's life. So this man, who's against, who's supposed to be against me, admitted that I saved the patient's life. And so that didn't come from my lawyer, because I asked my lawyer, can you ask him whether I saved the patient's life? Because that's the most critical question, right? Whether my treatment was effective and made a difference. And he admitted to the judge that I saved the woman's life. The other critical thing on the first day was that the judge commented that the guidelines, so I was accused of not following the National Task Force guidelines, because the guidelines say that I shouldn't do anything for the patient. I shouldn't treat the patient at all. I should wait until they turn blue and then go to the hospital and be intubated. That's what the guidelines say. So you can't use zinc, you can't use hydroxy, you can't use vitamin D, vitamin C, nothing. You don't do anything at all. You just give them Panadol, wait till they turn blue, and then go to the hospital.
Why are the people who came up with these guidelines not behind the dock and answering for why they're recommending such a dangerous treatment modality, protocol? I mean, this is bullshit. This is complete inversion. So the guidelines are completely ridiculous and dangerous. Why are these people who came up with it not behind the dock? So you're not actually in a proper court. You're still in this tribunal, aren't you? You're in the Kangaroo court. So we need to clarify that. 2, go back to that expert, the ivermectin expert. Why is he an expert on ivermectin? Why was he the expert witness? Because when you're an expert witness, it means that you've got a speciality and experience in that field. So, for example, if there's a car crash, someone breaks their ankle, and someone says, this doctor didn't fix my ankle properly, they'll get me then to be the expert witness because I fix ankles and I can comment on it. So when it came to your ivermectin, who was this expert witness and what was their expertise?
Well, we don't consider he's an expert because he's just a GP.
All right, okay, and why was that GP the expert witness?
Because he's been an expert witness for the Healthcare Complaints Commission for about 14 years.
Okay, does he get paid to be an expert witness?
Yes, he does.
Does he get paid per day or whatever?
I don't know per day or not, but maybe per hour and maybe per project.
Okay, but they're getting remunerated. They're getting paid money to
Correct.
provide evidence on behalf of the tribunal, for the tribunal. And
No.
since the no?
On behalf of the Healthcare Complaints Commission.
Same thing, Healthcare Complaints Commission. But basically, if they're going to be looking for work from the Healthcare Complaints Commission, they'll always be siding for the Healthcare Complaints Commission. So an expert witness is normally meant to be impartial. So the way it works in the UK is an expert witness is drawn independently and you're never the same person working for the GMC or working for, you just go out and get an expert witness. So the fact that they've got a GP who's on their roll, on their payroll for 14 years, I mean, it doesn't suggest to me they're much of an expert. It suggests to me it's just a paid person who's going to parrot whatever the Health Tribunal Commission, whatever, wants them to say.
Correct.
Am I right? Right. Listen, I don't want to be teasing this out of you. I want you to throw it at me like you're doing the phone calls, okay?
Well, he not only is he an expert witness for the Healthcare Complaints Commission for that number of years, he's also, for a period of time, was the tribunal member, what they call professional tribunal member, for 4 years with overlapping role over that period.
Okay. Well, that makes it even more incestuous. This is just ridiculous. So this idea of having fairness and impartiality, and this person is just an expert providing evidence to the court, that's what you're meant to do. Actually, no, they're working in the enemy camp. This person is a paid agent, effectively. All right, okay, fine. I'm glad we clarified that. That's definitely tick 1 kangaroo court. So what was the second point you were coming to? About
So he's also a tribunal member. He's been a tribunal member for about 4 years. And in that 4 years, he was doing both. He was serving both roles. He was an expert witness for the Healthcare Complaints Commission and a tribunal member during the same period. So basically, he was the judge and he's the expert witness.
It's just ridiculous. These kind of doctors I really don't like. You know, they're like almost like a snitch. They're snitching on the other doctors. You know, they take pleasure in taking other doctors down. And I think a big element of is that the power trip. I've got the power, right? You know, I'm a good doctor. Look at me. I'm on this panel. I'm getting paid. I'm an expert. You know, I know what I'm talking about. And I bet you they're not even a good clinician. Anyway, move on. Let's go on. So what's the next point?
So he admitted that I saved the patient's life. So my point is, if I saved the patient's life, why is the Healthcare Commission pursuing me and prosecuting me? To prosecute someone, they have to have evidence that I have not practiced or that I practice dangerously, that I'm putting lives at risk, number one. Secondly, they have to have some kind of evidence to say that, you know, my clinical practice is a threat to the public. That's the only reason that the Healthcare Complaints Commission can prosecute someone. So there had to be evidence of some sort that I'm a danger to the public safety and public health.
And did they provide any evidence?
No, they want me to. I don't know. They haven't. They have got nothing against me.
I'm sorry to keep going over this, but like, listen, it's just in your phone calls, you're just like one thing after another. I want you to get back into that zone. So like, you were there for 4 days. Talk about how they obstructed. Talk about how they made it difficult for your expert witnesses. Talk about how they delayed it. You know, you were giving me all this. You know, you pause for a second, Myhill, right, and think about all the stuff that you normally tell me in the phone. Maybe it's too early in the morning. Rosie, tell me, what was it like in the dock, listening and watching?
Adversarial, they were awful. And those 2 women in the front, their faces were honestly, I've never seen such evil-looking faces as those 2 people in the front, who were both GPs. They were rude, they were ignorant, and they were nasty. Anyway, there was Malik. It's not just me. Malik has a huge following here. We absolutely love her to pieces. She should be Australian of the Year. Here's this beautiful, gorgeous woman who came out here on a boat. She learnt English. She put herself through school. She put herself through medicine. And she's the most conscientious of people. She has admirers for every walk of life here now. We were so upset in court. They reduced her to tears because they were vicious. Anyway, we in the gallery behaved quite badly. The judge kept ticking us off and saying, "You'll be sent out." And of course, I mean, there were some very funny moments when one of these hideous GPs in the front, sitting below where the judge was, said, "Why didn't you follow government guidelines?" And Myhill said, "Well, I trusted my own judgment." And this doctor said, "Oh, I'd never do that." Honestly, we couldn't stop laughing. It was hilarious. And there were some moments, but most of all, we were enraged at how she was treated. And there were quite a few of us who were there every day with Myhill. She has got huge support here. It's just so outrageous to see someone of her caliber being treated like this.
It's humiliating, isn't it? And degrading. And when you say adversarial and they brought her to tears, what do you mean by that? Can you explain that?
Myhill?
You can explain.
Well, they kept hammering at her. It seemed that the main thing was they were trying to make Myhill say, "Oh, I knew more than those people in the ICU," which obviously she did because they were idiots, going to give the patient 6 milligrams of what do you call prednisone?
Prednisolone, yeah.
Yeah, when in fact it had by that time been clarified by FLCCC. Correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not medical. FLCCC had made it clear they needed a big whack of this stuff. And it wasn't really, I mean, since all this case and I've become so interested in it, other people have told me that their partners at different times have needed a large amount of prednisone. So it's not like this is completely out of left field. But obviously, look, perhaps I'm jumping ahead, and do say if I'm stealing your thunder, Myhill, but when Pierre Corey came on and confirmed that everything Myhill had done was just perfect, we could hardly contain our joy, honestly. And of course, we upset the judge because he waved goodbye to Pierre. We were just about cheering at this point when he came and confirmed that everything Myhill had done had been perfect. And had she not done that, the woman would have died. And the judge, of course, absolutely hated all that. But anyway, look, I hope I haven't stolen your...
You've done a great job in this one.
No. Roro, you're doing a great job.
Yes.
You're actually, this is great. This is what we wanted, right? We want more information, basically. So listen, so going back to the judge should be impartial. And so when Roro, you're nodding your head. Why'd you say no, they're not impartial?
Well, his entire delivery was adversarial, wasn't it, Myhill?
Yes, that's how I felt.
He was horrible. And as for those 2 women in the front, honestly, we couldn't believe how outrageous it was the way they treated
So these 2 women, are they on the side of APRA or the Health Complaints Commission? Are they lawyers as well as GPs? What are they? Who were they?
So on the panel, there's a judge, so it's got to be a legal person. And then there's 2 health professionals, and they're usually GPs. So there were 2 GPs. And then the 4th person is a lay person. So that's the panel that's judging me. So they had to listen to the case. They're only supposed to clarify issues. They're not meant to interrogate me. They're not. That's not their role. That's the role of the prosecutor.
You said to me on the phone that they were like fishing. They were looking for things to trip you up. Expand on that.
So obviously the role of the purpose of this hearing is for them to identify issues that I've done wrong, and they want the oral testimony from me. So it's the role of the prosecutor to find evidence that they have and then clarify and get me to admit things that they want me to clarify or to admit. The role of the tribunal members to oversee that proceeding, to clarify or to make sure that I conduct myself properly and the other side is conducting themselves properly. And if there's anything that needs clarification, then they do that. Now, it's not their role to assist the prosecutor to interrogate me, to draw information from me, or to force me to produce, to say things that I don't want to say. And that was what they were doing. They were pressing me. They were, at one stage, the judge was raising his voice at me. That's not meant to, he's not meant to do that. He's meant to be a neutral, impartial person.
I want to just picture this in my head because I'm a bit confused. There's you, the defense. Was there a prosecution team?
Yes.
And who made up the prosecution team?
So the Healthcare Complaints Commission hire a barrister, and they have their 2 lawyers with them.
Okay, so you're on the left side of the court. Are you on the left side of the court?
I was on. Well, if you're looking at the court, we're on the right.
No,
side.
from behind, on the gallery. If you're
on the
behind,
gallery, I'm on the left. We're on the left.
Yeah, so you're exactly. So you're on the left, and on the right is the prosecution with a barrister and 2 lawyers, and then at the top there's a judge and a panel of 2 G. And so it's not just the judge that is judging you; it's the panel.
Yes, correct.
4 people, so they should be neutral. Those 2 medical doctors and whoever else, they should be completely neutral. And listening to the evidence from the prosecution and the evidence from you. Right, Miley, stop 1 second. Roro, did it seem like the judge and the panel and the 2 doctors were being impartial? Or did they seem to be... Tell me, what was it like?
They were insulting. And at one point, when Miley asked for the question to be said again, the judge was so rude. He said something like, "Can you please listen carefully so I don't have to repeat myself?" I mean, you remember that when he said that to you? And also with some of the expert witnesses that Myhill had, she had the most illustrious of people from our freedom movement speaking on her behalf. They were so rude. I could not believe it. One of these odious, disgusting GPs in the front there called Dr. Philip Altman, who is the most well-informed, wonderful person who has been speaking out and doing his superb substacks ever since the moment he realised this was so wrong. She said, "You're a conspiracy theorist. You must believe in unicorns." You know, it was breathtakingly rude.
Oh wow, you're a conspiracy theorist. That doesn't sound like an impartial panel.
No, they weren't. They weren't in the least. And honestly, from the gallery's point of view, we were in a boiling rage at the end of virtually every moment, because everything we knew to be true, these people had absolutely no idea. And when that guy, Alan Glanville, got up and they said, "Well, have you ever treated anyone with COVID?" No, my expertise is in transplants, organ transplants. I mean, this guy was completely clueless. At every turn, Myhill was shown to be right, but would they give up? They had that entrenched view, which all of us who are aware of what's happening, all of us are so frustrated. You know, it's like dealing with the person who's diabolically ill with something that's clearly a result of a vaccine injury, and they just completely can't see that it is. That was what the entire experience was like. These people had soldered into their brains that the vaccine was safe and effective, that the ICU had all the answers, that the government was on their side, and the people in the task force had some kind of divine right to rule that everyone should listen to regardless of the outcome. Okay. I'd say that was pretty much how it came across.
Bloody hell. Right, listen, very, very quickly. I'm going to get back to you, Roro, and I want you to talk about some of the expert witnesses that came in. Myhill, I want to ask you about Billy B, right? Billy Big Balls B. He said on the podcast with me that tribunals are where doctors go to die, literally.
Correct.
Do you regret going to the tribunal and fighting at the tribunal? Because to me, what I said to Billy Big Balls Bays is that it's like going into a boxing ring with both your hands tied behind your back and a blindfold put on, and then told go fight this 300-pound massive, 6 foot tall sack of meat. It's just not fair. It's bullshit. Why did you get into that ring? And do you now look back and think, oh shit, yeah, this is not going to work out. It's unfair. It's stacked against me. Has your experience changed your view, or do you still have hope?
Okay. I haven't shared this before, and because it's Christmas, I thought I'd share something that's related to my faith. So I'm a Christian, and I believe that my whole journey associated with this suspension and everything, it was God using me in this very, very difficult situation, and it wasn't by chance. When they initiated this prosecution hearing against me, it's been a while. So this started in August of 2023, and my understanding is that the reason why this was initiated against me, it was because they didn't want me to go to the Court of Appeal, because I've done a judicial review like Billy Bay. I did a judicial review before the tribunal, and then my case was before the Court of Appeal, ready to be heard. Now, when I was, we've talked about this before, when I was there, I had a second matter which I wanted to challenge, and the judge wanted me to go back to the tribunal because the law requires me to do that. So I did that, but however, they withheld my judgment so that I can't go to the Court of Appeal, because if the judgment's ready, then I can have my case heard. So the reason why is that if I were to win my case, I would be able to put a stop to this unlawful, indefinite suspensions of all health practitioners in the state, because the Court of Appeal is the highest court in the state of New South Wales. They didn't want me to go there. So they initiated this prosecution proceeding so that they could cancel my license. And then when I get to the Court of Appeal, I wouldn't have standing. And then my case was over. So that was the background of how this prosecution hearing started. Now, I didn't have legal representation at the time, so I handled the proceeding on my own, the preliminary proceeding. And I was in a state of mind to self-represent and to fight this case. I got medical certificate to have the matter adjourned. And in March, April of this year, they pushed me to a hearing, even though I had a valid medical certificate. They wouldn't consider. I mean, I had a medical certificate for another 3-4 months and they wouldn't accept it. They just pushed me. But that means that they ignored the medical certificate and they insisted that I go to a hearing. So that was in April. Yeah, March, April, that I had to handle this while I was sick, while I was being treated and sick, and at a facility. I was doing a course, but also it's a treatment facility for PTSD. And so they schedule a hearing date in mid-July. For 3 days. And I then decided to reach out to my insurance, medical insurance indemnity. And so they appointed a large legal firm and a barrister. And that barrister was of my choosing, so I was happy with that. But after working with the insurance company's lawyer for about a month, I realized that everything they did was to undermine my case. So they told me that I didn't need to defend myself on the issue of ivermectin. They initially lied to insurance company that I didn't have any expert witness to support me. And then when I did, they refused to serve my expert witness. And time was running out. So 2 weeks before I was due to have the hearing, I had no evidence. There was no evidence being submitted to the tribunal. I had no expert witnesses, even though these people were on the sideline for weeks waiting to be served. And so I sacked them. I thought I would be better without a legal team. And I had a friend who's a paralegal to help me. So we decided that the only option was to self-represent, and I was ready to do that. And the very next day, a very good friend of mine called me up and said, she said, this is from God, and that you are to immediately contact your lawyer, your lawyer that helped you with the Court of Appeal case. I said to her, okay. And I was very quick to agree with her because I really trusted her. So I rang up and contacted my lawyer, and she said to me, Malik, this is the last day that you could put in an application to request for an adjournment. I said, what? So she did that. She stayed back at work on a Friday night to put in an application. And then Monday, when the HWC found out, they went crazy. They were blowing up. I mean, I could see so they were so upset. And we then had to, this is God working, delivering me from,
I'm a bit thick and it's late at night. So I just want to clarify. So you tried to take these people to the, Supreme Court, right? Your highest court, Court of Appeal, outside the tribunal, outside the Kangaroo Court. And you wanted to argue to the real court and the real justice system that this is all nonsense and I shouldn't have to go through this. And that judge said, no, you need to go back to your court, your tribunal, and argue it out with them. Am I right?
Not quite. So
just explain it in really simple language.
Yes. There's two. So when you bring an issue for judicial review, that matter progress. So I did have that matter progress from the tribunal to the Court of Appeal, ready to be heard. But when I got to the Court of Appeal, there was a second matter that I decided to challenge. So that was the matter concerning delegation of power.
Myhill, you have to explain it in simple language.
Yes.
What was the first matter that you were taking to the Court of Appeal? Okay. What was that matter? And then secondly, what does it mean, delegation of power? Just keep it really simple. Avoid legal terminology. So what were you taking to the Court of Appeal? What was matter number one? What were you arguing? This isn't fair. And what was number two? This isn't fair.
Okay, so judicial review is really reviewing the law. Basically, I'm saying, hey, HCCC Medical Council, you have not acted according to law. And this is the law that I like the court to review on. So the law, unfortunately, unlike Queensland, where Billy Bay is, in New South Wales, you have to go to tribunal first on your judicial review before you can get into the real court, because the legislation in New South Wales states that. So I took the first matter I took to the court to the court for judicial review was the matter that required the Healthcare Complaints Commission and the Medical Council to refer me to the tribunal. So when you're suspended, when a doctor or health practitioner is suspended, you need to have some kind of process, a proceeding where that matter gets discussed and get decided on by a neutral body like the tribunal. You can't just get the
supposedly neutral.
Yes, supposedly neutral. And that's all we were asking. And the law clearly states that if a matter is significant, if it's serious, if you suspended someone, that complaint and that issue is serious. So the law said that they must refer us. They must refer us to a hearing, and that they had to do so within a reasonable time. They can't drag it on for years and years on end, and because that is a punishment. They want to punish us with the process.
Okay, so I've got that. So matter one is they've suspended you. You don't know how long the suspension is going to last. You don't know what the issue is. There's no hearing set. There's no time set. All you know is you can't work. You can't earn a living. You're suspended. So you go to the Court of Judicial Review saying, hey, this isn't fair. They've just suspended me. I'm in limbo. I don't know how long this process is going to last. Well, but while I'm suspended, I'm being punished, in effect. They should get on with it and tell me what I've done wrong and decide on the matter, not just leave it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So that was matter number one.
Yes.
Okay, what's matter number two?
The matter number two came about because of this proceeding. We asked my legal team asked the medical council, did you have the power to suspend her? Because we want to see that delegation of power, because these people only have power. The power can only come from the law. And also, in order to have that vested power in them, they have to follow the steps. So these people had to be assigned accordingly, and they have to do so according to law. So when we got to the Court of Appeal, we have a document from the Medical Council showing us that they have not followed the law, that the way they delegated the power to the tribunal to the medical council members. So those people that suspended me when I was at the Section 150 hearing, they have not had their power delegated according to law, which means that my suspension was unlawful.
Okay, so why didn't the judge just rule in your favor and say this?
No, we have to demonstrate that. We have to be able to argue that. Now, the second matter, the judge said, well, this matter hasn't been brought to the tribunal, so you got to go back to do this second matter before the tribunal before you can have it heard at the Court of Appeal.
It's insane. It's just this legal technicality BS.
Correct.
Lawfare bullshit. The matter of hand is, are you dangerous? Did you harm anyone? No. Did you save someone? Yes. What's the goddamn issue? Why are you suspended? Why are you being dragged through the mud? What's all this bullshit about? It's just nonsense. I hate all this legal gobbledygook technical.
Yes, so we could easily have that matter argued in the Court of Appeal, but they refused to let us do that. So we were told that if we were to argue this second matter, we have to have an application before the tribunal, and we're going to start the same process as the other one again. So the tribunal, all it has to do was to dismiss my case because this is a matter of legality. It's not based on merit, and they don't have power to make comment on the matter of law. And even if they do, it's insignificant. We just ignore it anyway. It doesn't matter what it says. All it needs to go is dismissed, and that was it. And I could have my hearing heard at the Court of Appeal. And so it took many weeks. So after 16 weeks, I was still waiting for that matter to be dismissed. So basically, my interpretation is the tribunal is not willing to release that judgment. And my barrister at the time said to me, Malik, they never go, this is the word he used, the tribunal never going to release your judgment. So let's not go to the Court of Appeal. Let's just go with this proceeding that's been initiated against me, the prosecution hearing. And we can win on this one.
So hold on one second. So instead of, what was the matter that they should have judged? What should the tribunal? So you've taken a matter to the tribunal, and instead of them responding to it and saying, yes, you've got a point, they then went on the attack. They then started this prosecution against you to try and scupper your own plans.
Not quite. So you remember how I had two matters? I had one matter got to the Court of Appeal, and I wanted to have a second matter challenge. That second matter was before the tribunal, and all it needed to do was to stamp, okay, we've received it and we dismissed it, and that was it, so that it can be progressed to the next phase, which is before the court.
But you know the words you just used that you said, I'm sorry for being so thick. You said the tribunal would do what? They would do what? They would accept it and then...
No, so all it needs to do was to dismiss my case. Basically...
Why would they dismiss it?
Well, they don't, because it doesn't matter what they say. They're insignificant because they're not a court. Whatever they say doesn't matter because this is a matter of law. It's judicial review. Basically...
Right. But they had to do something. They had to do something. They had to acknowledge they received it.
Yes.
And then from that acknowledgement was enough then to take it to the judicial review. But they didn't acknowledge it. They dragged it through the mud. 4 months went by. And in the meantime, they've launched a prosecution against you.
Correct. That's it. You've got it.
Finally. Did you get that, Roro? Roro, did you know all this?
Well, actually, I'm learning as we go along because it is very complicated.
It's very complicated.
Many times I've met with Myhill in the last, couple of years, and we've had coffee together, and I've thought, I don't know how she understands all this. You've done a degree in law now as well as medicine.
Yeah, Myhill, you need to, honestly, for simpletons like us, you need to break it down so that we understand, because You're saying things, and I'm like, what does that even mean? So, okay, I've got it now. You took 2 issues to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal said, actually, number 1, that's fine. You've already taken it to a tribunal, whatever. Number 2, you need to run it by the tribunal first. Tribunal didn't acknowledge even point number 2. They didn't stamp it and go, yeah, we agree. No, we don't agree. There was nothing. They just did nothing, which then meant you couldn't progress on to the Court of Appeal. You're just in limbo land. And while you're waiting there in limbo land, they go, hey, we're going to attack you in the meantime. We're going for you.
Yes,
Right, okay.
that's it.
Hallelujah.
That's it.
Fucking assholes. So in the meantime, are they still not responding to point number 2? Are you not telling them, hey, what about point number 2? When are you going to not acknowledge this?
This is where I got really desperate, because it appeared to me at the time that they were delaying or refusing to release the judgment on matter number 2 in order for the Healthcare Complaints Commission to quickly proceed with the prosecution proceeding in order to cancel me, or in order to finish me off at the tribunal, so that by the time I get to have my Court of Appeal hearing heard, that I would be cancelled by then.
Yeah, because if you're not a doctor, if you're not registered anymore, the Court of Appeal will be like, well, what's the point of you coming now? It's too late.
There's no utility.
No
That's
utility. See, you're using all these legal terms. No utility. Just
no
say
use. There's no use.
Just say no use. God, you really you've really become a fucking lawyer, man. No utility.
No.
Jesus. There's no point. Basically, the lawyer would say, the judge would say, there's no point now. It's too late. The horse is bolted. The horse is bolted. You don't have your registration anymore. It's too late. I can't comment on this. God, they're sneaky devils, this tribunal fucking asshole. Right, so listen. Right, let's talk about your witnesses. Who did you have? You had Pierre Corey. You had a few other people. Who are them? Who are they? What are their expertise? How did it go? And how did they make it difficult for your witnesses?
My first witness was Dr. Altman. Now, I don't know whether you know Dr. Altman. Dr. Altman's a PhD in pharmacology, and he has been doing drug research for Big Pharma for like 50 years. And so he analyzed studies, data, doing drug research in order to get drugs approved by the TGA. So I believe he's worked for Pfizer before. And so that's his area of expertise. And he's been doing that for 50 odd years. So when the issue of when the vaccine came about, he was how the approval process was done. And also he knew that ivermectin was effective based on all the research that he's done over the years. So he's been very vocal regarding the task force guideline, and he's written an open paper challenging the sanity of what they've recommended. So he's not a doctor. Now I got him on board because I believe that his experience is very, very important in challenging the National Task Force guideline in not recommending ivermectin as a treatment of choice and an early treatment for COVID. So they put him on the stand on Tuesday, and they gave this man a hard time. I mean, he's meant to be there for 45 minutes, but he was there for almost 3 hours.
Oh,
and
wow.
while he was there, my other expert was waiting outside, and that was Professor Clancy. He was made to wait 2 hours, and he cleared his appointments and everything just to be there. And after he waited 2 hours, and they finished with Dr. Altman, they put him on the stand, got him to swear, and then they said, court finished, and that's it. He didn't get to testify. They just put him on the stand to swear in, and that was it.
What?
Mm.
Okay, hold on a second. Before we get to Clancy, why did they call Philip Altman a conspiracy theorist who believes in unicorns?
Well, they were discussing the issue of why the TGA and other health experts did not believe in ivermectin. And so Dr. Altman was trying to explain how, the people on the other side are very selective in what they want to consider in the in the body of evidence, that that the science behind ivermectin is overwhelming. And so he's trying to explain to them why these people in the TGA and health health regulators and doctors who's at the task force, why they couldn't see the evidence, but he could. So she's trying to say that he's looking for something that doesn't exist, essentially. So that was a constant sort of
3 hours is a long time.
Yes.
It's a long time. And when that person, Philip Altman, was up there being the witness expert, who was asking the questions? The panel or the prosecution?
The panel.
Or your sister?
Well, both, but they both the prosecutor and the tribunal members. In fact, all of the tribunal members participated in this witch hunt.
Feeding frenzy.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound very fair to me. It doesn't sound like a normal...
It's not fair at all.
Like I said, it sounds like you went into a boxing ring with your hands tied behind your back with a blindfold put on.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of crazy. All right, okay, fine. And so what about this guy Clancy? Who's Clancy?
Professor Clancy is one of our most eminent doctor in Australia. So he's an immunologist. He's a professor of medicine and immunology. So he's really, how do I say, he's highly knowledgeable in the area of medicine, in the area of vaccine. He's done research in respiratory vaccination with respiratory conditions and things like that. I mean, he's been on John Campbell's show a number of times. I haven't actually followed Prof. Clancy that closely, but I know that he's a highly knowledgeable man in the area of medicine.
It says here on Wikipedia he's currently treating people with ivermectin and oxygen saturation and all that kind of stuff. And like you said, he's got an immunologist, he's a doctor, he's got a PhD, he's a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
So what I want to know is, why is it that there's doctors who have used ivermectin in Australia and are not being sanctioned and being dragged through the courts? And why are you being dragged through the court?
That's exactly my question.
Did you ask that in the tribunal?
No, I'm not allowed to ask questions.
Maybe you just should. Maybe you should just pipe up and go, excuse me, why am I here when all these other people have, been using it and are not here?
Yeah.
Why don't you say that? I would. You can imagine me. I wouldn't fucking stay quiet.
Well, that's a very, very good question, because there are about 5% of the group of doctors that I know that prescribe ivermectin during the pandemic and still prescribe it now. So
how many?
About 5%.
No, how many? Like, how many doctors do you know?
Do I know? Yes, about 7 to 10.
Okay, so you know 7 to 10 doctors. And are there any doctors who've been suspended for using ivermectin?
A few.
And what happened to them?
Two of them have had their suspension lifted, and the third one still suspended.
So why did the other two have their suspension lifted? What was it about them that they prescribed ivermectin? Was their case any different from yours?
I don't believe so.
I mean, no, sorry. Yes or a no. I'm the judge now. Are their cases any different from yours?
No.
So that's a good question. Is it a different jurisdiction, a different state?
Yes, different state. No, hang on. Yes, different state.
Okay, see, I'm trying to figure out why is it you are being singled out? Is it your ethnicity? Is it your state that you're in? Is it something you've done different? Because it sounds a bit weird.
It is. I don't know why they wouldn't answer the question.
But you didn't ask it. You didn't ask it, you said.
Well, we could ask, not at the hearing, but you can put questions to them and things like that over the course of this challenge. But a lot of our questions were ignored. Like, who's John Smith? I mean, my lawyer did an exceptionally good letter to them, and they ignored everything. They wouldn't give They wouldn't respond to anything we ask. And that's what we're dealing with.
Here in the GMC in the UK, from my understanding from doctors who've been dragged through the courts and they tell me what the process was like, they never provide any information. They make you wait for ages, but then they write to you on a Friday evening and demand that you provide them with information within like 3 days. So they've been sitting for 6 months doing nothing, but then suddenly you get a deadline on a Friday saying you need to give up us all this information in the next 3 days. Otherwise, you're in trouble. And so it's like double standards. They have all the time in the world and they give you no information. But then when they contact you, you're meant to respond double quick time and provide all the information. And if you're not, you're obstructing them and you get into trouble and more trouble and more trouble. And then when it comes to witness and expert information, they decide what is allowed or not. They often will say, we don't have anything. You didn't submit anything. We don't know what you're talking about. There's nothing here. And you have actually submitted everything. You've sent everything. And you confirm that they've got it. And they go, yeah, we've got it. But then by the time you get to the tribunal, they go, no, we don't have anything. We don't know what you're talking about. And then also, when it comes to questions, they never respond to any questions, and there's no pressure for them to respond. They go, no, we're not talking what you're talking about. But when it comes to asking you questions, you have to give a response. And if you don't, you get into further trouble because you're obstructing, you're being difficult, you're blah, blah, blah. Like I said, it's going into the boxing ring with 2 hands tied behind your back and your eyes blindfolded. It's fucking bullshit. Two standards. They've got one law for themselves and there's one law for you, the doctor. This is, by the way, I'm talking about the GMC in the UK here. Okay? And the whole thing is rigged.
There's no difference here. It's exactly the same.
Yeah, well, I thought so, because if you listen to my podcast with Bruce Dooley, he talks about the federal state medical licensing board that was set up in 1912, just before at the time of the Flexen Report, and the central bank. It's interesting. It all happened at the same time, and they also had this international medical regulatory agency, and every fucking medical agency from Zimbabwe to Pakistan to Indonesia to New Zealand to Australia to the GMC, all are part of this umbrella network that's centered down in Texas, and they all go and meet once or twice a year. They all get told the same shit, and they all get told how to regulate doctors, how to punish doctors, and how to run their kangaroo courts. It's basically one big mafia cabal. It's a racket. And us doctors we're just sitting ducks.
Yes.
And if we quack the wrong way, they're shutting us down.
Yes, that's it. So if they had it their way, I would have been cancelled a long time ago. In fact, from the day that at the initial hearing, the very first hearing, which was in October of 2021, I was told that I was indefinitely suspended and I was never to practice again. Now, the medical council does not have power to do that at all. So they labeled me as being indefinitely suspended. Now, no one in Australia has been labeled as that. I was the only one. Even Dr. Hobart was indefinitely suspended. And then they told my insurance company that because I am being indefinitely suspended and I could never ever practice again, my insurance company used that as an excuse to force me into retirement.
Of course they did.
And they wouldn't fight for me. They wouldn't represent me. They wouldn't provide legal assistance for me because they said that your prospect of winning is zero. You have a very low prospect of winning, so we don't have to fight for you and you have to retire. That was in October, November of 2021.
Okay, that's a really good point. So I'm going to come to that. Bev has just made a comment. Yeah, Bev, I'm quite good at this. So Bev goes, really pointed out, so precise and so practical, Ahmad. Why aren't you in number 10 in place of automaton Starmer? Go figure, because I'm not a satanic worshipping pedophile. So there you go. I think that's the reason why. I'm fucking a lot smarter than him, and I'm also a patriot, and I'd get all the shit done in one afternoon. I swear to God. But they don't want all the shit fixed. They don't want everything sorted. They want the evil to perpetuate. And they're not patriots. They're all captured and complicit. That's why I'm never going to be in number 10. But I would actually go. I'd work for nothing. I'd work for 1 pence. I'd work for 1 pence, and I'd fucking sort out all the shit, and I'd have a lot of gallows up as well, actually. I want No, I'm being serious. I'd want justice. Right, listen, going back to you, Myhill. So, look, this stupid fucking kangaroo court bastards. Right. So next step, this guy, Clancy, stand on and provide evidence or not?
So on that Tuesday, he was sworn in, and then the judge said court finishes, and that was it. He had to go home. So what happened is that what I was saying, what they were doing, that they were upsetting my expert witness. They were trying to give them a hard time so they never come back to testify again.
Frustrate them. Okay.
So he couldn't. And so what happened is that Wednesday came, they cleared every expert witness. They wanted to use the whole day to put me on the stand. So instead of giving me chunks at a time when there was time available for me to testify, they wouldn't do that. And so even on a Monday, the judge was saying that, we don't want to prejudice Dr. Trinh. We like her to do it, put her on the stand and have a continuous period where she can testify rather than being sort of have a sort of chunks at a time. And I thought to myself, well, what are you up to? Because I was thinking, because he kept repeating himself, because my legal team was saying that we've got this hour here, could we put Dr. Trinh on the stand to save time and to get as much done as possible? But no, he didn't want to. So we finished an hour early on Monday. And then on Tuesday, we finished at 4. So the tribunal hearing starts at 10 and it goes to 4. And we have a morning tea, which is supposed to be 15, 20 minutes, but the first day it went for almost an hour. And then lunch goes about an hour and it doesn't start on time. And so how many hours you have left for the hearing?
This is the same with the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court Business, High Court of Justice with Dr. Sarah Myhill. It was 2 days, 10 to 4, and it was complete obfuscation and bullshit. Yeah. Just like you said, you start at 10, and I've never been before. I wasn't intimidated, and I was like, is this it? Just sitting around, just not, like, I'm surgical precision. I get my shit done. I'm organized. I'm efficient. And it was all bullshit conversation like, oh, has this bundle been submitted? Is this bundle accurate? Can we talk about the numbering of the bundle? Have you got the same numbering as my bundle? And a bundle of evidence. Can I just check that the bundle 265, is that what you've got? And fucking an hour has gone by and all we're talking about is fucking bundles. And what I want to hear is, should Dr. Sarah Myhill be suspended or not? It's wrong that she's indefinitely suspended, and what are we going to do about it? And instead the judge is like, the bundles, I've told you guys when we submit the bundles to do it properly in the right order, and can I just check with you, what bundles have you got? And have you guys got the same bundle? And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it's a comedy show. It's a fucking comedy show. Like, you go into the High Court of Justice in London, right? Fucking ancient institution. And it was just a joke. It was a fucking joke. And I'm just like, oh my God. And they're getting paid thousands of pounds a day for this bullshit. And do you have... So I have the bundle. We've all got the same bundle. I was like, fucking hallelujah. You've just spent 90 minutes deciding this shit. It's fucking crazy. And it was just day 2 was just the exact same. And it was like right at the end, in this day 2 in the afternoon, finally we started talking about the nitty gritty. By the time my ass was fucking painful sitting on these hard wooden benches, and the back is stiff and I'm fucking like rolling around. I just did not understand. What is this all about? I should have brought a padded seat. It's just complete.
You're very good at describing. That was exactly. Do you know how many?
So halfway around the world, you're having the same shit going on there, right?
Yeah. You know the stack of papers. There were about 4 or 5 bundles, about this thick, and that I had to, go through. So there's the evidence that they filed against me was 2,300 pages. Yeah. So you did a very good job describing that. That's why we're laughing. It was exactly the same.
You know how you talked about the GPs like sour-faced with evil? Oh, the GMC rep guy. Oh my God, he was just sitting there like this.
Yeah, that's how they
Like
look.
he just looked fucking miserable. Like, my God, like this.
That's the look.
And like whenever the barrister for Sarah Myhill would make a case and go, look, he would just go like nod furiously with this ugly face. And I was like, Lord Almighty, what is your problem? These people are toxic. Like you could just tell they wanted to destroy Dr. Sarah Myhill. And I can just imagine being in that tribunal kangaroo court. They just want to fucking crush you, Miley. They want to put that boot on that ant. And you know how when you swivel and just, make sure that that spider's properly dead. That's what they want to do to you. They just want to crush you and then really make sure they've done a good job and leave. And they're like, why are you still alive? Why are you still fighting back? It pisses them off. They just want to finish you off.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
But they didn't do it.
So they subjected me to a whole day of interrogation from 5 different people, from the 4 tribunal member and the prosecutor.
Surely that's not right. Surely the panel's job is to listen to the evidence and to then adjudicate and decide on the matter, not to directly interrogate you.
No, correct. They're meant to be neutral. They're meant to be impartial. They're meant to just clarifying issues or make sure that the prosecutor doesn't overstep. But instead, he roused at me. I was only got angry with me because I was told that I could only answer yes or no. And that's it. It's either yes or no to the question. And so
hold on one second. When does a lawyer ever give you a yes/no answer? They're never expected to just go yes or no. They go, but my lord, if you look at the matter and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. But when it's up to you, now you're told you just need to answer yes or no. And you can be tripped up and trapped in a yes/no question.
Correct. And I kept doing that the whole time. So I said to the judge, you asked me to swear, like to swear in, to tell the truth, nothing but the truth. And I said to him, a yes or no answer is not the whole truth. So
nice.
Yeah. So after that, he was much better to me because I really put it to him that I won't speak half truth because I can't. I mean, you can't say yes or no. That's not adequate.
Shame on this judge. Shame on this judge. Okay, one last thing I quickly remembered about your ivermectin case. Were you the first doctor to be suspended over the ivermectin issue? Time-wise, was there any other doctor who got there before you?
No, I'd say I was the first.
Could it have been that they went for you to make an example of you, to shut everyone else up and stop them from prescribing ivermectin so that the whole vaccine... Most likely. So there you go. See, we're finally getting there. Actually, I would make a good lawyer. So basically, what is special about you is you were one of the first ones, if not the first doctor to be suspended in Australia for using ivermectin. You were their test case.
Yeah.
You were the win that they bagged. We got one. We got it. I should be me.
You should be. Because actually, I never thought of that in that way that you said it. But it is true. You're correct. Because the person that went after me, so the Westmead complaint came from the doctor who's a toxicologist at Westmead Hospital. And he's the one that went on television and radio to say that ivermectin doesn't work and that people shouldn't purchase ivermectin online because, toxicity and overdose. And he was talking about a case that he treated in accident emergency. And he said that people shouldn't buy any sort of cure online and ivermectin doesn't work and you all should go and have the vaccine. His story, the media spun that story and broadcast that story intensely. Every single media in Australia was broadcasting this intensely for over 3 days. And 7 days later, ivermectin was banned.
So they're definitely going for you. So that they wanted to make a test case. Now, listen, one of the other things you were telling me about was this £3 million mansion registered John Smith or whatever. Tell me about that. That was very interesting. Tell me about that.
I probably shouldn't talk about that because that didn't come up. The evidence I had was not accepted. So
what do you mean evidence wasn't accepted?
So I had a PI that investigated the matter. So
Private investigator. You had a private investigator, right? Investigating what matter?
The matter concerning John Smith and who's John Smith and how is he and how is he a real person? Does he exist? And whether there's anyone behind the John Smith complaint, because we couldn't get any answers from the Healthcare Complaints Commission.
Can you get, so basically, just in case no one's heard the other podcast, someone called John Smith apparently made an online complaint about you and the fact that you've treated several members and with ivermectin, and the information that they used is information that no one could have other than a government body, because they were looking at your prescriptions, and that's confidential medical data. So unless it's a government agency, this John Smith can't be any other person. It can't be another doctor. It can't be another patient or member of public, because they're providing evidence that can only be obtained from confidential medical records and a government system. So you're trying to figure out who is this John Smith. It's a funny name. They could have been a bit more original. What a bunch of idiots, these guys, whoever lodged the complaint. They could have at least pretended to make it into a name, but they've literally just called it John Smith, the most generic name you can get. Yeah. And you're struggling to find who this John Smith is. And the Tribunal, Medical Council, whatever they are, Complaints Commission, they're not giving you information about this individual?
No, correct. They wouldn't. They said to me that they have the right to use anonymous complaint against me. That is true. But my point with John Smith is that he's not anonymous. This complaint isn't an anonymous complaint. This complaint is from someone who's untraceable, who might not exist at all, because his email address bounces back, his telephone number doesn't call through, and he doesn't have a physical address. Now, in cases where this kind of situation exists, the Healthcare Complaints Commission cannot use this complaint against me, because it's obviously fraudulent. It's obviously unsubstantiated, and usually by law they have to discard this complaint. My point is that this complaint was presented to me as if it was real. They never said anything about anything at all. It was me that investigating all these things that highlighted the point that it's potentially fraudulent. And I told them, look, all these allegations are false, and who's John Smith anyway? He's not contactable. And they won't answer any of my questions. And the other big issue is that the prescription that was used in the complaint was a prescription of a family member of mine, and that prescription was taken by me to the chemist to have it filled, and I left it at the chemist because they ran out of supply. The chemist, when I got suspended, when I received the complaint from the Healthcare Complaints Commission, I went back to the chemist and asked them where was the prescription, and they told me that it was handed over to APRA agent. So it's the Australian Health Regulatory Agency that took my prescription from the chemist. That prescription was valid. That was prescribed before ivermectin was banned. I did not break any law, and that prescription should not have been handed over to APRA at all.
Where does this John Smith and £1 Million Mansion comes in? Where does that come into play?
So let's go back a little bit. So that prescription of my family member, John Smith, had it when he lodged a complaint against me. He used that prescription as evidence against me. So that is the proof, so to speak, that he's saying that I know that's her. She's the one that prescribed it. Here's the prescription. Now, John Smith made a mistake.
But the only person that could have that prescription is a government agency, because they took it from the pharmacy.
Correct.
So John Smith is a government agent.
Yeah, well, unless
Matrix.
Unless
Agent Smith.
The Healthcare Complaints Commission can prove otherwise. My deduction is that it had to be from the health regulatory bodies, because there's other evidence to prove that it is too.
So the mansion. I want to know about the mansion.
Okay. Well, I don't know whether the mansion is related, but I engaged a private investigator to find out who John Smith is, and he said to me that the email address that was used in that complaint registered at an address that in an expensive part of town in Sydney. So that address was the address of that mansion where you were referring to. Now, I don't know whether this individual did make a complaint or not. I don't know. What I need to, I mean, the Healthcare Complaints Commission had to tell me whether the email address that was used was that email address. And because what happened is that when I use that email address, that John Smith email address, it bounces back.
Okay, but do you know who the owner of that mansion is?
Yes, I do.
And do they have any ties to any of these medical regulators and medical bodies?
Indirectly.
How?
First of all, I have to qualify. I don't know whether this individual is linked, but I have to qualify because I can't tell a story that's half true because I don't know whether this person made a complaint or not, because it's just like, Ahmed, you have an email address that anyone can just put because when they make a complaint, they can put down your email address, and it could be from you.
True.
It could look like it's from you, but you didn't make a complaint. And this could be true in the John Smith issue as well. All I can say.
But what is the indirect link? What do they do, or what relationship do they have potentially with the regulators? Hypothetically.
Well, this individual is an investment banker, and this individual is linked to St. Vincent's Hospital.
What's St. Vincent's Hospital got to do with anything?
St. Vincent's Hospital is a hospital. It's a large teaching hospital in Sydney, and it's a hospital that does organ transplant. And St. Vincent's Hospital during the pandemic was pushing the vaccination.
Okay. And do they get their funding from any big organizations?
Well, this is where I find really interesting, because the National Task Force guideline received funding from this entity called the Ian Potter Foundation. It also received the Ian Potter Foundation. According to St. Vincent's Hospital website, they received funding from Ian Potter Foundation of the sum of $2.5 million for the hospital in Melbourne. So my question is, why is the National Task Force receiving funding from a private entity? And it received money from a number of foundations or number of philanthropic entities, and one of them is the Ian Potter Foundation. So I don't know, why can't the government fund this guideline? Why does it receive funding from a third party?
Yeah, okay. So this Ian Potter Foundation is a bit interesting. If you look at who it is, our people, very, very interesting. Our people. Hold on 1 sec. So you've got several King's Councils. That's interesting. So yeah, look, Queen's Council, King's Council. So you got a lot of that people in there. You got people who've worked with Rio Tinto. That's basically a Rothschild company. Institute of Medical Research. Yeah, there's a lot of high-powered people over here, by the way. This Ian Potter Foundation.
Yes, can you see the symbol of the sea? Do you know what's special about seahorse?
No, I don't. What's special about it?
It's the male that gets pregnant.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Why are you mentioning that? Why are you saying that?
Wokeism.
Right, okay, next. You know, the anonymous complaint. So basically, look, John, what you're saying about John Smith is, it seems like a fictional character. No, it's not a real person. It's not a patient. It's not someone who you know who's complained.
No, it's not a patient.
It's not a patient. We don't know who it is. No one's telling you who it is. But it potentially might be from this rich guy who is... sorry, my daughter's just come out. Just wait 1 second. Some rich guy linked to banking and something else. I mean, it's just a bit weird. So... About anonymous complaints, you're not the only person who's had an anonymous complaint. I just want to quickly ask you guys. So I had an anonymous complaint as well, by the way, and several. But when the hospital provided us evidence, and so they actually didn't. I did a freedom of information request to the GMC as well, and then the GMC sent me bundles of like correspondence that they got, and they redacted huge amounts. But there were some email names that I could see, and one of them was this fellow. And I want to ask you guys, do you know who this guy is? Do you know this guy? John C. Holmes?
No. Wow.
Yeah, John C. Holmes is the guy that made my complaint. He has a Twitter account. There's a slight problem with this, guys. So John C. Holmes is dead.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah, and look what he was into.
Oh, lovely.
Wow.
Yeah, and look, exceptionally large. Yeah, look at this.
Wow.
So my complaint, one of my complaints was a Twitter account under the name of Johnny C. Holmes, who's known for his exceptionally large member. And this hospital was taking this complaint so seriously that, I got referred to the GMC and I subsequently got suspended by another hospital, from a dead porn star. Tell me what other doctor out there in the world has been sanctioned by a dead American porn star.
I can't match that one. I can't compete with that one. That's another level altogether.
It's another, seriously, the main hospital that I worked out of, for 12 years, suspended me because apparently I failed to notify them of a GMC investigation. I told them that I never was under a GMC investigation. I was never notified by the GMC that I was being investigated. I was never notified by the other hospital that I was being investigated. They said, I'm going to refer my concerns about you to the GMC. I went, yeah, fine, go ahead. And then I waited and I waited and I waited and nothing happened. And then 6 weeks later, I write to the GMC and is there a complaint about me? They wrote back, no, there's no complaint. 3 months went by. And then this other second hospital goes, yeah, you know what? You were referred to the GMC and investigated. You failed to notify us. I was like, I wasn't. And they were like, yes, you were. This other hospital told us. Look, they warned you. They told you. And you didn't tell us. I went, look, there's no patient involved. I didn't do anything wrong, right? The GMC looked into the matter and said it doesn't warrant an investigation. I didn't have I've got a clean sheet, clean record. For God's sake, are you mad? What's your problem? They went, no, we've kicked you out of the hospital permanently. You're not welcome back.
It's the same with me. I've never had a complaint made against me in 20 years, 30 years of my practice. And all of a sudden, I had 2 complaints on the same day, just hours apart. Why? If the Healthcare Complaints Commission is so smart with their investigation, that in itself speaks volume. They should look into the validity of both of those complaints. I'm asking, hey, if someone complained about me, fine, I'm ready to face questioning and all that, but not with a falsified complaint. I can't deal with that. That's just so wrong.
It's
wrong.
Go
after me based on a falsified complaint.
Don't you think all of this system is rigged and they're all just Freemasons?
Yeah, I think so. I think that they can target any specific doctor they want. They just make up the complaint, and the health regulators, even though the complaint's dodgy, they still investigate because they are complicit in the act. They're all complicit.
It's all lawfare. Judiciary and legal process and due process and regulations have now been weaponized to punish dissenting doctors.
Correct. They specifically target. So if they want to get rid of you, they can get rid of you. They want to get rid of me, they can do that at any time. So this is my point, is that this is how evil the system is, that the minute you are not agreeing with them, they just get rid of you. And they're not even shy about it. The way they go about doing it, it's so unlawful, and they're still doing it. They are above the law.
So why are you spending money playing in this rigged system?
Good question. In order for me to fight, I get to expose the lies. I get to expose the fraud. And I want the Australian public and now international people, from other parts of the world get to see what is the process that doctors like me being subjected to. And I'm hoping that in the process, people would wake up.
In a nutshell, listen, you got an elevator pitch. You need to be quick. You need to be a bit more snazzy and snappy, Myhill. I want to make a short out of this. I want you to quickly, so I can advertise it and put it on my X account. I've got 195,000 followers. Listen, you've got literally 1 minute. I want you to get it off your chest quickly. What does the public need to know? What are doctors being subjected to?
The doctors are being subjected to unlawful persecution, unjust process, unfair, unjust process. They are subject to ridiculous amount of lawfare, and they don't have any rights at all. There's no even human rights, let alone any legal rights at all.
Why are you being subjected to this, though? Why are doctors being subjected to this?
Because they cannot have dissenting doctors. They cannot have any doctors that's speaking against ivermectin, speaking against the vaccine, because having an alternate voice is gonna invalidate what they are telling the public, that the vaccine is safe and effective, and there's no treatment available for COVID.
And it's not just COVID vaccines. Basically, if there's any policy, any drug, any intervention that the government and big pharma want to promote, if a doctor speaks up against it, they're going to come for you. Am I right?
Yes, exactly right. So like the treatment of cancer, that's a big industry. They make a lot of money. Big pharma makes a lot of money because a course of chemotherapy is a few $100,000, right? So they can't have a cure for cancer. So I heard that Dr. William Mackers is being attacked.
Persecuted, yeah.
Yes, persecuted, and that people want to send him to jail. I mean, why? This is the man who treated thousands of patients and cured them of cancer. So
right, wow. I mean, 100% right. It's the biggest earning sector for oncological treatment. And of course, it's money. Why would they want a cure for cancer? And you just need to look at the figures. It's gone from 1 in 50, 1 in 20, 1 in 10, 1 in 5, 1 in 3, 1 in 2 now. It's a joke. I mean, the numbers, the stats tell you. Rosemary, are we missing anything? Do you want to add anything before we wrap up?
I'd love to say something. Professor Clancy wiped the smile off their faces, didn't he, Malik? When after all the accusations of unicorns and conspiracy theories, Professor Clancy stood there. He didn't have long. He only had 20 minutes. He's coming back to finish his testimony. But he just said, all the Western governments were captured by Big Pharma. He just chopped the whole thing up in one fell swoop. It was absolutely sublime.
So he got to come back on another day and give his testimony.
That was the last person who spoke. So I hope all the people in the tribunal have the most hideous Christmas. I was standing outside the court, I do these little 1 or 2 minute videos, and I was standing outside the court letting people know what had happened. And out sprang Myhill and threw her arms in the air, and the look on her face of absolute joy. She just said, I'm so excited. And it was a moment I won't forget.
Why did you end so jubilant? Why did you end so happy? What was it that made you so happy? That statement?
No. So it's a summation of all that happened over the 4 days prior. So it was very important to get vindication, which is that I've saved the patient's life, and that came from their expert witness. The 4th day, they also dropped 2 charges against me, which was that I was 2 charges. One was improper conduct, and second was unethical conduct.
What charges are left then?
Well, the thing is, those 2 charges were not on the charge sheet. So the wording of those 2 charges was not they were not on the complaint sheet. So I could only just surmise, theorize that charges that they dropped would probably get rid of the finding of practicing significantly below standard. Because if I'm not unethical and I'm not improper, then they can't make a finding of practicing significantly below standard. So then I'm only left with one, which is not complying with the Section 34A. So the Section 34A is a section where they compel me to surrender 20, 30 medical files of patients that I admitted to have prescribed ivermectin for, and I didn't surrender to them the patient's medical file because these are confidential medical information and they didn't have the right to have them, I believe at the time, because they used a fraudulent complaint and they were going to create a third complaint against me by using all those medical files. So they can't do that. So this, I haven't discussed this before because this is the most traumatic part of my persecution. It's resulted in me having PTSD because I was threatened over and over that they were going to throw me in jail. They're going to subject me to $22,000 fine if I don't give them all this information. I mean, we gave them as much information as we could, but the medical files, when they asked for it, I didn't have them anymore because I asked the patients that I've treated, do you want me to? I said to them, the government wants these. Can I surrender to them? They said no. So they all wanted their files back. And so I gave it back to them because these people came from war-torn country. They were persecuted by their government, and then they subjected to a similar kind of persecution here. Because what happened that these people were living in the southwest of Sydney where there was prolonged lockdown. And when you have COVID, you're not allowed to leave your house because there's an order that's made by the government that if you leave your house, you're in breach of the law. They can arrest you and put you in jail. So every day you have police coming and check and see whether you're at home every day until you're clear, until you're PCR negative. So these people were locked in their house for like 2 weeks.
And it was double standards. They weren't doing this to the welfare areas. I know this.
So these people did not want their name and their medical files to be in the hands of the government.
Listen, I need to wrap up soon because my daughter's awake. My wife's actually out tonight at Christmas dinner, and I need to put my daughter back to bed. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to wrap up now. She's just waiting for me, and I've got so many things more that I need to speak to you about. But listen, what I'm hoping is all those horrible people that were in that courtroom are going to go away, have a miserable Christmas. I hope the ghost of Christmas past, present, and future will come and visit them and haunt them. And I hope in the new year, they'll just be like, you know what? Let's just drop everything. There's too many people who are watching us. There's too many people around the world scrutinizing us. This isn't worth it. Let's just drop this one. What do you think, Myhill?
Well, I don't know how they work because they're too evil for me to consider how they think and how they operate. What I expect is a fair. I deserve a fair process. That's all I'm asking for. I'm asking the tribunal member to give me a fair process. I shouldn't be at this hearing in the first place. But now that I'm there, give me a fair process. Now I have 4. Besides Professor Clancy, there's 3 other expert witnesses are superb, and I couldn't wait for them to testify. Yeah.
And have they testified or not yet?
They haven't.
Who are they?
So there's Dr. Fish, who is a GP and a pharmacologist. He was the applicant for the GMO case. So he's the applicant in the case against Moderna and Pfizer, and we've lost because the judge said there's no standing. And this is a judge that did not disclose conflict of interest because apparently this linked to Big Pharma. The other doctor is Dr. Lindsay, who's an American doctor. She's a pulmonologist and toxicologist. And then I have Dr. Pridgen. Dr. Pridgen is the GP, and he won a huge case against the Medical Council in 2022. It's a huge case, as big as Billy Bay, probably bigger.
Wow.
In a different way. In the legality of the case was much, much better.
So it's going to come back again. You're going to go back to court again some point in February, March, is that right?
Correct. March.
All right. Well, listen, we're rooting for you, and hopefully before then they'll change their mind and drop everything. You never know. They might just do that. Right. Listen, both of you, I love you loads. And you're warriors, both of you. You really are. Miley, I'm sorry you've had to go through all of this. You know, you're definitely a sword of God fighting these evil bastards. And Roro, it's amazing having a good friend like you looking after her. You know, it makes all the
Miley's got a
difference.
lot of friends. She's got a lot of people who really love her and admire her for her courage. She's got courage in spades.
She
We love
does.
her for it.
Thank you, Rosie.
Miley, but you're a warrior. We love you. You know that. I speak to you all the time. I love you, man. You're a good egg. Sorry I was a bit pushing you in the beginning. I just wanted to get going, you know?
That's fine. Yep.
Because
It's your show.
yeah.
So
Doing a great
It's
job.
also people, you know, people do switch off nowadays. You know, an hour and a half is a long time to listen, 2 hours is a long time to listen.
yes.
And you need to get people, you need to hook them very quickly and keep them. And I see the figures, you see, I look at the stats, and if you're very slow to take off, people after 20 minutes, 30 minutes drop off. So the podcasts that do really well, it's very engaging speakers who keep you, they grab you from the beginning and they hold on to you the whole time. Whereas if you're a slow burner, some people will stay with that. But you know, like it's a book. You know, sometimes the first chapter or second chapter is really slow to get into. A lot of people just don't bother. They just put the book down. They don't read. Some people will crack on through that. And then suddenly by the third, fourth chapter, it's like racing. It's like, whoa. And it's just, that's all I was trying to do. I was trying to just...
No, I understand it.
All right,
And I'm not experienced. You're
right.
superb. You're so interesting to listen to.
Doing a great job, Ahmad.
All right. Well, listen, I love you guys. Everyone, I love you. I hope you all have a great Christmas.
Yes.
And
Merry
you're all
Christmas.
amazing. The people who are listening, I'm going to put this up for everyone to see. I think this is very important. You never know, even maybe the people in the panel and the judge get to watch this and go, oh, shit. You know, so let's
But they
do
know
that.
that because we had a lot of people witnessing what they did. So they know what they were doing. And they know that people know what they were doing.
Let's keep the pressure on them.
Just with regards to John Smith, I have to be careful because there was a spy at the hearing.
Great. Of course there would be.
So he was there for 2 days, and I had to chase him out. So these are very powerful, the rich and powerful people.
Yeah, well, stay safe. If anything happens to you, we know it's the evil motherfuckers. But listen, don't be scared of anything because you got God behind you. All right, remember that. Don't be scared. Never be fearful. I'm not fearful. Yeah, they can come for me. It doesn't matter. Right, guys. God bless you.
Thank you.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
And
Christmas
everyone
to you
listening and
family.
watching.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
I, Ahmad Malik, am a private civilian protected by the Geneva Convention. My Substack, social media posts and podcasts are my personal experiences, observations and opinions. This information is for educational purposes only. Although I am a doctor, I am not your doctor, and I am not providing medical or legal advice to you or to the wider public. I am not licensed or registered with the GMC or any other licensing board. The responsibility for the interpretation, due diligence, and use of the information from my Substack and my podcast lies with you, the viewer and/or listener. Please do your research and use your discernment. It is not my intention to harass, intimidate, offend, defame, conspire, blackmail, coerce, or cause anxiety, alarm, or distress to any man or woman, and the information presented here is done so with peaceful and honourable intentions. Enjoy, folks.